Now the other thing which is happening, which we haven't really figured out yet, is how this whole fintech revolution is going to shape our lives. The competition is coming from all kinds of different places. Recently, Nandan Nilekani was talking about the WhatsApp movement for telecom companies, that they were making a lot of money using text messages, and suddenly WhatsApp comes along, and now the volume of WhatsApp messages is more than, I think, 1.5 times the total text messages ever sent by all telecom companies put together from the time of something like that. So things are changing, and we talked about Uber before. We don't know where that change is going to come from. And in India, I think through Jan Dhan and Aadhaar and mobile and so on, we are going to see some real interesting things happen. Now, those interesting things can also create risks, which is what I think is happening to some extent in China. You have peer-to-peer lending, you have all kinds of crazy things, new things which regulators don't understand. People find ways to do those things, and it becomes too big and organized, and too many people are involved, and then it's very hard to pull it back. We are going to see all that fun happening in India as well. We don't know how the system is going to manage. The regulatory scrutiny, as we talked about earlier, is going to increase. The regulators are not going to allow investment managers to charge high fees or to claim something that they are not doing, and so on. So this is something that we've already discussed. And from within the investment management profession, we have to find ways that we keep ahead of this and keep the interests of investors or customers always in front whenever we are devising products and distribution channels and so on and so forth. We talked about the rise of passive investing and the need to justify your fees, and this continues the same thing. ETFs are growing, domestic equity mutual funds are growing, and that they're growing at the expense of actively managed domestic equity mutual funds. So that trend is going to continue in time. Alternative investments are growing. So we talked about, I alluded to this before. And robo-advisors are growing. We haven't seen too much of it. Very, very beginning stage as far as India is concerned. But some of our wealth management companies are going to reinvent themselves. Some new players are going to come in, and they're going to give they're going to give advice without having to have large armies of relatively untrained investment advisors. We face a real problem in India because our investment advisors are very poorly trained. We have very low standards, for their certification, and they are really not. They don't really understand what they are selling, and they are only focused upon the commissions that they make. And I think the rug is going to get pulled out from under their feet by technological innovations like robo-advisors. We don't have time to go into details, but I would be very happy to come back and maybe we can do a seminar in your college to talk more about how the interface of finance and technology is going to change our lives in the coming years. Good project material there. So I want to just spend 5 minutes, I think I'm already over time, on the question of what are we doing as investment professionals in order to serve the society. Now, those of you who are preparing to enter the profession, you must understand that as a professional, you have to act in your customer's interest. You have to abide by a code of practice, which is something that we need to understand and study and sort of meditate upon. You have to meet very high entry standards. Before you start practicing, you should know that you have the knowledge and skills. That may involve passing exams, that may involve internships, that may involve other ways of learning and so on. And you have to commit yourself to continuing professional education, because what you learn in school or what you learn even as part of a credentialing program like CFA is not enough. You have to keep studying on and on every year through continuing professional education. And for educational institutions, this is a great opportunity because they need to understand that just because somebody has left the college, their need for education is not over. And always remember that you are a professional because the society has allowed you to be a professional. The society has given you certain rights. They have reposed their trust in you, and if you do not return that trust, then your value as a professional will disappear, and you will quickly find yourself not respected by anybody. Your business will suffer, your organizations will suffer, and the society will suffer. So I will stop at this point. I have a few more slides here, but I think I've used up my time. So thank you very much.
I've been in the business of looking at mutual funds, and of course, the topic here I was missing out that capital market and mutual fund. But for me, when I got started in looking at mutual funds closely, that is the only interface for individuals for the capital market, or that has been my understanding. But that has not been the reality as such, because let me just give you a perspective of for the people in the back. How old is mutual fund in India, how it has traveled so far, the key things that we have seen, the key changes that we have seen broadly into kind of broad phases. Mutual fund is a 50-year-old business in India. It started with UTI, and and that is exactly 50 years ago, in fact 51 years ago, and after that nothing much happened. UTI turned out to be a supplier of something like a quasi-debt instrument for 20-30 years. The first big change that came about was in '87, when public sector companies were allowed to get started with their mutual fund. And that was the beginning of the modern mutual fund, so to say. And that is when UTI also changed its complexion in terms of launching its first ever equity fund in form of master share. And after that, it took another 7-8 years for government to allow private sector players into the mutual fund arena. That happened. The mutual fund regulations for entry of private sector players came in 1993, and and that led to the disappearance, as it happens in any area, that government mandates public sector monopolies, and the moment it is open to open competition, public sector disappears. Because the whole monopolization by the regulatory or the entry barrier creates a kind of inefficiency which they can't withstand, and that led to we have seen that most of the players which existed then, about 8 of them, 4 of them wound up, 2-3 others they exist in a completely different form, and UTI itself had to change completely in 2003. And for many years, it resisted that it was not a mutual fund. It was saying that, in fact, it officially claimed that it was not a mutual fund for so many years, and it should not be brought into the purview of the regulations. So we see that there are conflicting interests, legacies, and this is a very natural evolution. After all these 20-22 years of watching mutual fund very closely, and we, as any self-respecting Indian, I look at things that when we talk of that we want to aspire for being a large economy, this economy, and the regulatory framework, I think the reality is far more. The reality is very embarrassing, just to put it bluntly. The reality is very embarrassing because we have all these regulations that has taken place. We have catalyzed a lot of development. We have this modern mutual fund industry, and when I see how people experience these, have people benefited by investing them? Have people been able to invest to benefit from the capital market in the first place? How did people invest in capital? How did people gain exposure to capital markets 10 years back, 15 years back? Are they happy? Has capital market been able to democratize wealth distribution in the society? The unfortunate part is that it has not. It remains on the fringe of, it is still far from being a mainstream investment. And there are much deeper things there. And somebody from the government will appreciate that, we have a very funny situation. All the people after all this kind of, regulations being made, and all the changes, the way we have directed our financial savings to be channelized. We have a very unusual situation that all the government employees, they have access to something called a national pension system. All the government employees who came in in their job from 1st of April 2004, they are members of national pension system. This is the defined contribution system and giving up on the defined benefit system that has existed in the past. And their money is managed by the public sector, the private sector investment managers. So far, only public sector pension fund managers of those employees. And private sector companies' employees, their money is being managed by EPFO, Employee Provident Fund Organization, a government department, which has struggling so hard. It has taken it 7-8 years to really reconcile with the idea that the long-term savings of Indians working in private companies should also be invested in equity. In fact, last month, it finally gave, with a lot of song and dance, it was announced that, we will have, if EPFO money will be going into 5% of the money will be going into equity. So we as a country are a little unusual. We don't have the capital market because most of the developed economy which we have referred to, the biggest component of the channelization of savings into the capital market happens in the mandatory form. You take up an employment, in the organized sector, you are supposed to save for your retirement, it is enforced on you, and that finds its way into the market. That finds its way into the market in a methodical way, whether it be US, the 401k. That was the turning point in the in the stock market or the capital market in that economy. And that is the mechanism of channelizing long-term savings in respective market. In India, it has been completely different. Our long-term savings finds into fixed income. We are a fixed income country. And our opportunistic seasonal money comes into the market. And it has happened in the last 20 years. And I'll just note, cite you some examples. 1992, every Indian, 1 out of every 20 Indian got up to invest in mutual fund. There was a fund called Master Gain. 65 lakh people invested in a mutual fund. There was a lathi charge on Bahadur Shah Zafar Marg because people simply queued up to invest in that mutual fund. And the amount raised then was about 5,000 crore rupee. If we adjust that money with the market change that has happened, it will translate into something like 85,000 crore. We don't have any Indian equity fund of that size. The largest Indian fund is 1/4 the size of that. So we have always, then it was followed by something called Morgan Stanley Mutual Fund, which once again people queued up. Then 2-3 years later, as some of my batchmates from MFC became, freshly minted investment bankers, and one of them is sitting right here, he was doing some 40 public issues in a year's time. And he was actually raising public money, and getting investors' money into those companies. Many of those companies disappeared. So that was again the seasonality. That was once again, investors came in. So short-term money comes into Indian market. Long-term money finds its way into fixed income, and that is how we are. And not much has happened on that front. The unfortunate part is that the most recent regulations, this 2004, what I was telling you is that national pension system, which got devised in 2004, 1st April, it became mandatory for all government employees of the central government and state government to be the monthly deduction of their salary, which is 10%, matched by the government, should find its way into a mutual fund kind of structure, 50% of which should be into equities. Unfortunately, for next 7 years, it never happened. The most, the greatest, we know that markets are cyclical. The greatest Indian bull market happened from 2004 to 2008. The market went up from 2,300 points to 30,000 points. This is once in a lifetime phase. that was the time when the government had devised a plan that government employees' money should be going into the market, at least 50% of it. One, they would have easily reconciled with the idea, because your 1,000 rupee deduction matched by the government by 1,000 rupee, that would have doubled. That went, and if it would have been able to ride the biggest bull phase that we have seen in the Indian market, I don't think Indians would have needed a demonstration of what equity or market exposure can do to them. We missed those beautiful opportunities, and we are, so I am very cynical about all that is being talked about. We are great at missing opportunity, but at the same time, some great things happening right now, which actually makes me think that you have great reason to be extremely optimistic about. One is that very simple, great things, what Nandan Nilekani was saying about 2 weeks back, that what is going to be the WhatsApp moment for the banking industry. We are almost there. I was telling you about the problem of Indians being, India is a fixed income country. Equity exposure of Indian has been such that they have reason to be extremely disappointed because they have never been methodical. They come in at the wrong time only to lose money. It is being talked about in the movies and in our neighborhood that you are doing something nasty if you are speculating in the stock market. And that is largely true, because most people, if their core of their savings, methodical savings, finds into fixed income, then you only have the opportunistic money with which you take chances. So that has been disappointing, but I think things are in for a big change. I would like to also cite you another big financial sector reform and the biggest disaster that has happened, or the biggest fraud perpetrated on Indian citizens. We did not have the insurance sector wasn't open for private participation. In 2000, after a lot of back and forth, it did open. And it did open in a manner that a lot of capital went into this sector. And the biggest fraud was perpetrated on Indians, where they were hogged the insurance-linked saving schemes, which is lousy investment insurance. Most Indians have been able to buy insurance which is not meaningful. And they have been able to buy one of the most expensive investment plans in the world. These investment plans were of a kind where 35%, 1/3 of your money goes towards expenses. And now we are trying to figure out and fix that problem. Few weeks back, we have got this government committee's report, which is trying to primarily fix the screw up of this insurance industry. It is not a financial sector regulations fixing. It is just trying to fix this, because most of it revolves around the way these expensive investment-linked insurance plans are going to be the kind of damage it has done to the trust in the society. I was referring to about the big hope, why you have to be very, these are things, what has happened in the last 25 years is great. We have had great regulations. We have the finest regulations possible. Now we are trying to fix many of the problems. But what 3-4 things that has happened in the last 1.5, 2 years, and why or maybe last 3-4 years. One is that we have been able to build all the presence. We would not have the payment bank possible, which I think is going to be the magical thing. When Nandan Nilekani was saying that it's going to be the WhatsApp moment for the Indian financial sector, we are almost there. Today, when somebody, forget about all the nasty things that I have told you, that insurance products were bad or mutual funds were sold in a seasonal way, or most Indians have not been able to access financial products efficiently. Even some of the basic methods is a nightmare. People know that in my neighborhood that I have something to do with mutual fund, and as is the general tendency that people want help, people have efficiently. Even some of the basic methods is a nightmare. People know that in my neighborhood that I have something to do with mutual fund, and as is the general tendency that people want help, people have everybody has great belief in getting a great tip, and to be able to benefit from that. The moment I tell somebody, I'm really scared of suggesting somebody where to invest, not because it will be a bad advice or it will not turn out to be good. I also believe that the method which I will suggest, if somebody follows it, will actually keep me safe from being embarrassed about it few years later. But more importantly, the moment somebody tries to access any of these financial products, that is the start of the nightmare. You go to a bank and try and invest say, if you go to a bank to open your NPS account, the bank will try and hawk you a pension fund, which is from its affiliate or insurance company, because that gets them 15% more. The kind of embedded conflict, the KYC, we have the Money Laundering Act. Prevention of Money Laundering Act is a very essential piece of regulation that came into being. This is another thing where the government has to really revisit. It is the biggest friction for small guys to get started, because, and it is entirely a regulatory failure. It is a governmental failure, because the big guy, it is not meant for holding the crooks. It is not meant for preventing the crooks. It only acts as a friction for the small guys to get in, because the big guys who want to do all the hawala, all the dealings, I don't think they are bothered by this Money Laundering Act or the KYC thing. But the small guy, his life has become nearly impossible